Right, well, this is something new on YouTube for John Doyle poems. It's a bit like something I do on blogtv. These might form backgrounds for where poetical ideas come from. Um, I'm trying this out because sometimes on YouTube these things don't record properly, and I've noticed on blogtv they don't either. So, the first one I thought I would talk about is to do with a thing that comes up a lot in my poems, and is a view that I have, and I've expressed it on blog TV already. And it's a utopian, I suppose, if you want to actually phrase it in its proper terms. And I don't know whether I actually get this from H.G. Wells or where I've got this from, probably from my love of science fiction. Is this idea that that we choose the life that we live, in the sense that if you believe in God, then God, in all religions, as far as I'm aware, has given free will to man, and then he's judged upon that in the hereafter, or he's or in Buddhist terms, it depends on how good he is to whether he stops regenerating, as it were. I think that's right, anyway. But nevertheless, it's free will. And if you don't believe in God or religion, then you have even more free will in that basis. And yet we decide to live our life like this. I know a lot of it is inherited by our past, by the structure that we find ourselves within. And I know that H.G. Wells had an idea that the only way you get to utopia, I believe this has been attributed to him, whether this is actually, I've heard this from, I'm not quite sure, but it was that if there was a nuclear war, Third World War or whatever, and only 1/3 of the population were left, maybe that is the only possibility, though I suspect it would put us so backward that we would then be unable to do all these things, because we wouldn't have the technology and we wouldn't have the compassion that we are allowed within the financial means. So I don't know whether it would really work. But what I mean is that I know, well, people in general are responsible for everything, and those who have power have even more responsibility, and they're the ones that can make these changes, but they don't. Or I know it's a lot more difficult than what I'm saying. The idea I'm giving across, the ideal, is that we should live in a utopia. We could live in a utopia right this minute. Well, we have the capacity to, we have the choice to, we have the, everything possible. If you look about the Earth can contain, I believe I saw this on some program, 6 times the amount of people, for food-wise, that it already does. So if we've got 6 billion people, then that's 60 billion people that the Earth could supply food for, as a whole. And yet, look, around the world you see people are starving. Now, who is really responsible for that? I know a lot of people will blame that onto God, but is it really God? Because God's given us a planet where we can supply enough food for 10 times the amount of people we already have. So whose fault is it really? God's or man's? It's man's, isn't it? We've decided to live this life, and the problem is the individual can't make the change. It has to be a collective thing. It has to be done with mainly with those within power, because they are the ones who wield the power. They're the ones who keep this inheritance going on from generation to generation. And there was something I said on blog TV that I wrote down, that we need to change through perception. That's how we will change things, from going from one person's mind to the other, an understanding of the situation, of the world that we live in, and of the world we could live in, the utopia we could actually choose. And I know a lot of people say, well, it's very fanciful and it's impossible that it could ever happen. Well, is it really impossible? Why choose this life where everything is geared towards economy, financial matters, selfish means of, I have this and I don't need care? But you have a lot of people, this is the ironic thing, you have a lot of people who, if you ask them, they would say that, well, they give and they want everyone to live a perfect life, but obviously it would take a lot of change from those who are wealthy at the very beginning. They would be the ones who would suffer, and that's probably why it never happens, because the ones who have the most power, the ones that could actually make it happen, are those who are wealthy, and they will have to suffer at first to balance out all the means that we have. But imagine if we lived in this world, how much more productive we could be. With you've got pharmaceutical companies who are embroiled in money matters. How much money do they make out giving all the drugs to Africa? I heard a statistic before that that we give country about £1 billion or £1 million or whatever, £1 billion, and everyone says, oh, that's brilliant, look how much money we're giving to them. And why they're in this situation, what they don't realise is we actually charge them £2 billion for other things to do with interest or stuff we've loaned from them before. So it's that we're actually they're still minus by £1 billion. So it looks like we're doing something good, but really we're not. We choose this world, and we should we could cure so many things like cancer and AIDS and things like that, rather than having so many pharmaceutical companies around the world all working against each other. Imagine if they actually pulled all that information together, and imagine if money wasn't involved. What would someone do if they actually found a cure for cancer or AIDS, a complete cure where it only took one tablet or one operation? It's the type of thing that financially that would ruin a pharmaceutical company, much like when there was a light bulb that was invented that would you'd only need one light bulb for a lifetime, and immediately as it's invented, a light bulb company bought up the patent, and then that light bulb never saw the light of day because it would ruin them, because you sell one and that's the end of them. And unfortunately, I believe that pharmaceutical companies, however much they might deny this, probably work in exactly the same way, and so do a lot of industries and social services. But things like social services, housing, medicine, all that stuff should be taken out of the financial matter, and it should be something that we do as part of humanity, because we are, as we care for our blood relatives, why not care for our greater blood relatives, which is humanity? Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, oh yeah, right, whatever, get a life and all that type of stuff, and but if you actually do think about it, these things I'm suggesting are not impossible. Is actually a choice, and it's a choice that we choose not to take, or we all choose that choice in some ways or other, because if there's something we don't like, we don't just sit by idly, and not as a collective. Or individually, in most cases, people will go out on the streets and protest and do all sorts of things. And if we want to make change happen, we can make it happen, but we don't. And it's probably because humans generally are rather selfish and they only think about themselves. I mean, it's not their own fault. It's also because we only can feel pain that is inflicted upon ourselves. It's very difficult to feel external pain in exactly the same way as internal pain. So obviously, if we're in a good situation, we're not going to feel that we need to really push ourselves, whereas if we are in a position where we're in great pain, then we will do something about it. That's unfortunate, or fortunate, depending on which way you want to see it. It's a shame we don't have that collective kind of feeling. That sounds like some kind of science fiction story that could be, couldn't it? Anyway, I'm going to stop there, because I don't know whether this is all going to be saved or not, and I hope it is, and I shall record some more of these throughout the year. I don't know what the next one's going to be about, but I hope you enjoyed that. Please leave your comments and any suggestions of what you want to know and what topics, and also you can have this kind of conversation with me live on www.blogtv.com/people/John Doyle Poems. Okay, thank you very much. Peace.